Oh man. All right, should be going live here any minute now. This show, like, fall apart. It happens like
You
this
know,
every Thursday where I'm just like, you know,
it was taco night tonight, so of course I had way too many.
mm.
So I'm like one beat away from a food coma.
Lindsay sent us some ice cream,
Mm.
so I just ate some of that, and now I'm like in probably a sugar coma. God, that in like a TypeScript coma from earlier.
A TypeScript coma.
Yeah, we've been converting a UI kit from JS to TS for a client
Mm-hmm.
as we go because the other apps that use it are all TS, so we wanted to make sure that it's sort of equal across the board. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, JS is like fine, but it's also like you can kind of do whatever you want, however you want to. You can break a lot of rules if you want, and then when you start converting that to TS, you start to have to like deal with the rules that were broken,
Yeah,
which it can be difficult trying to like unravel it a bit. So,
that actually
and
happened
then
to
like,
us on Protege. We had all these. We thought we had the linter set up right, and that we were just writing good code, and then someone came in and added PR and said, "Hey, I got the linter working," and then there was. I mean, I think you've seen some of it. There were just like hundreds of errors everywhere.
yeah, I should be in a place again soon to contribute back to it again too, which I'm actually looking forward to. I'm learning a bunch about Cypress right now as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going deep on testing stuff on the front end.
We've gotten to the point where at Foster where we're almost using Cypress for like the visual click-through test and unit test at the same time.
It has like component test capability, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
So
looking at that.
we build with Craft, so we have like Cypress commands that are talking directly to the Craft API that we're then just calling wherever we need it.
It's awesome. Yeah, it seems like Cypress has come a long way since the last time I really used it. And then also like with the API level or request, CUI.request. Hey, what's up, Thomas? Welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to hear about your bad situation. I would send you some tape if I had some or a sealant. He just moved, so we sleep on an air mattress that's going flat.
I've been there before.
Yeah. And Aaron Thomas's sleep hygiene to the entire world here.
Remember when
Oh, that's
I
good,
moved
Thomas.
I moved to the Atlanta area to do some tattooing, and I didn't know if the shop was going to work out, so like I didn't get an apartment or anything. I just crashed at my mom's for a couple months. It was the same situation. I was like, I'll just get an air mattress. This will work, and then like week 2, it started going flat.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Alchemist Camp? How's it going?
Not to mention, she'd keep it freezing in the house, so then like the air inside the air mattress would get cold. So then there's just like no getting warm.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was living in Georgia, I mostly slept on an air mattress as well. That sucker would like, it would dip in the middle of the night, so you'd wake up like a hot dog. It would just be like up on the sides, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some times.
Mm-hmm.
Going down the little pantry. They love that place, man. Little pantry.
It's a staple of the town.
Oh yeah, Rockwell couldn't. What's up, decent? Rockwell couldn't push the commit because of the hooks. Yeah, I turned him upside down. Do you think he was not used to that?
Oh, the pre-hook commit
Yeah,
stuff.
like husky hooks. Yeah, he was talking about how he was wanting to push like a work in progress commit,
Mm-hmm.
just to cap it off or something, and it wouldn't let him. I guess that's what stash is for, sort of. But you can kind of forget about stashes.
Usually, what I do is we have pre-hook commits on Protege. I'll just go into the package.json, comment out the Husky stuff, push it up, and then turn it back on.
What is
It works
dash
every
n?
time.
What's that flag do?
Oh, yeah, there's a command to tell it to like not do that.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but I work with Gitcrack and I don't know the command line to save my life, so I just commented it out, turn it back on.
Hundreds of dead stashes. Exactly what I'm talking about. You have stashes, and you go to like reapply one, and you're like, wait, which one was it? There's so many here. That was my situation for a while. I had to like go jump in the water or something. I've got a knot in my back too,
I'm
so I got
chugging on
this.
some sweet tea.
Whoa! It's like it's
What is
not
that?
green, it's blue, but it's still getting cut out of the picture. It's a thing for your back. If you have like knots in your back, you can get
Ah,
this under your shoulder blade. Yeah, that's funny. The color of it.
I was hanging out with someone on Zoom the other night, and they're trying to show me a piece of paper, and the same thing was happening. They were trying to show me a little sketch for a design, but it
You
kept
see
keying
this?
out the paper.
That's
I can
funny.
see the majority of that.
It's keying out like purple pieces of it too. Just a bunch of dates though. It's a snack. Check check. Might be cutting. I might need to switch my headphones again. Doo, doo.
It's going to be the whole show.
Wait, wait. We're almost back. Why? It also names everything. Hey, what's up, AJC Web Dev? Check check. Can you hear me? Can I hear you, Drew?
I don't know. Can you?
Yes, I can. Got it. All right, we're back. Sorry, yeah. Sometimes the Bluetooth headphones work great, and sometimes they don't work at all.
Every time I put my headphones in, my computer tries to use the AirPod microphone as the default, which then makes the headphones sound like super tinny. Drives
Right.
me crazy. I tried to find a fix for it, and the only thing I saw was like download this program or stick the script somewhere. I was like, I don't want to do all that.
Yeah. I like them most of the time because just they just work really well. But except for when I'm
Hmm.
trying to stream, specifically streaming, it seems that they have some trouble sometimes. But yeah,
Hmm.
I don't know why. It looks like some people are here, so we can probably get going, get moving. So I'll do the clap.
Okay.
Sounds like the neighbors have kids outside, and they are very loud. All right, sorry, I'll do the count. You ready?
Wait, am I clapping with you?
Yeah, I'll count to three, and then we'll clap on four. One, two,
Okay.
three, clap. Ready?
Like
One,
that.
two, three. All right, that should work. Hopefully. Cool. And let me know if you can hear the neighbor children. They sound so loud.
Okay. We're good. We're good so far.
That's good. Cool, cool. So yeah, welcome back, friend of the show, Drew. It's been so if we used Zencaster last time you were on, that would have meant I was in
Hmm.
San Clemente, which meant that Jamie was still in school. So
Yeah,
this would have been 2 or 3 years ago.
I think so. Actually, I think I have it on my Polywork. Um, it was almost 2 years ago, August 13th, 2019.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because it was about a month after I'd Just moved across the state and bought a house. So yeah, that lines up.
Awesome. So how are things? How are they? How have things been going for the last 2 years?
Uh, lots happened since then. I bought a house, got a job, lost the job, got two more jobs,
Yeah.
a whole bunch.
Were you still working with Cold Fusion last time we had chatted?
No, I'd actually just left that job. So in 2018, I'd started working as a junior developer, working with Cold Fusion. But I don't know if you remember this, but like a couple of weeks into me getting transitioned to that, the senior dev like severely injured his knee and was
Right.
out of the office for like 6 months. And like they were supposed to train me on Cold Fusion, but then he was out of the office. He tore something in his knee going down a flight of stairs. So then I pretty much just became like email support for like 6 months. So throughout all that, I ended up leaving that job and going back to a full time design role, which was where I was just starting last time we had chatted.
Right. Okay.
And then I was with them up until March of 2020.
Right. And so what are you doing these days?
These days, I'm working with a company called Foster Commerce, which you're familiar with, or
Mhm.
I don't know. Was it Foster Commerce when you worked there?
No, I was just working with Steven, just directly. I don't think it was Foster at that point. I think he was
Okay.
about to maybe form Foster, but I don't think it
Mhm.
was like official yet.
Yeah. So my dev story is like somehow intertwined with Sean's and like worlds colliding at every other step. It feels like.
Yeah.
So for those of y'all who don't know, me and Sean used to play shows together back in my hometown in the local music scene. Um, and then he moved off to California. I moved off to Atlanta to do some tattooing. I'm actually the person that drew all over his left arm with a Sharpie that he still has yet to wash off.
Yeah.
um,
It was Sharpie, then you tattooed over it.
yeah, it actually was Sharpie.
Yeah,
Forgot about
you
that.
freehanded it on.
Yeah. So the I guess we could start. I'll start with leaving the full time design job and going back into programming. So I left programming to go back into full time design because we had just had our first kid. The job came with a little bit of a pay bump. With anyone with kids knows that pay bumps are double enticing or twice as enticing.
Right.
So I took that. I wasn't super happy about it, but it paid me more, so whatever. And then I was there for about 5 months. Like I said, I'd uprooted my family, moved across the state, bought a house. And then COVID happened, and I was the last one that got hired. So I was the first one they let go. And my wife was 5 months pregnant at the time. So that was like super scary. And from there, so that was March of 2020. From there, I connected with a company called Layer Frame out of St. Petersburg. That was thanks to a tweet going like mini viral. I think I checked it like a couple weeks ago. It ended up getting retweeted like over 700 times, which
Nice.
was which was a wild time because I interviewed with Amazon. I interviewed with like a couple of FANG companies like out of nowhere. Like I still had yet to have like my first real dev job, I guess. And then one tweet like landed me like all those opportunities. I ended up connecting with a company called Layer Frame. They were a React shop. We did some fun stuff for Spotify. And then a friend from the virtual coffee community that I'm in tweeted out. She said, if you're looking for work, drop your information here, blah, 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 blah. So I just posted mine. And then Steven, which is a guy I used to work with, just randomly, it was like a month after I'd commented on it. I said, hey, I'm Drew. I think because I said Vue, Tailwind, Cypress, I think that's what caught his eye because that's what Foster uses. But it was like a month after the actual, maybe not a month, a couple weeks after the tweet. And then he hit me up to see if I was still ready for work. Then I sent him over my resume, which was where he saw DK on the resume. So he asked about you. And what's funny is he actually told me no the first time. So he reached out to schedule an interview with me, and then he We were just chatting. He was like, "Yeah, we're looking for someone, mid-level to senior, blah blah blah." I was like, I'm probably like top end of beginner at best." So we decided that it wasn't a good fit at that point in time. And then
Hmm.
2 or 3 weeks later, he sent me an email. He's like, "Hey, something's changed on our end. Do you want to come back? Do you want to come to work?"
Yeah,
So I've pretty much been with them since July of last year.
that's great. It's
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of like hiring stuff at Metal Lab, and it's really surprisingly hard to find kind of like people that fit the exact role you're looking for. We
Hmm.
always end up like it's tough, especially if you're in a rush or if you need someone soon, or if you have like too many projects or something like that. You need someone to be able to produce. It's kind of hard to find someone that has everything you need. It's a lot easier to find someone that you're willing to invest in, which I think is a
Hmm.
perfectly fine option. But sometimes you just have to rush. So yeah, I didn't really realize it because there's so many devs, right? But I didn't realize
Hmm.
like how tough it can be to find the right people.
Yeah, it can be really tough. And I know he even told me like when he brought me on, it was gonna just be a 3 month contract. He's like, "I'm gonna be honest, I just need someone that can help write some code. We can do a 3 month contract with the idea that we're trying to find someone to come on full time to fill this role later." Um, and it actually ended up. So when I agreed to work with him, it was under the assumption that it would be for at max 3 months, and then I'd be back looking for work. And then probably about a month and a half into it, he was just kind of like, "Hey, you're vibing with the team really well. You're doing solid work." So, and then they extended a full time offer, and of course I jumped on that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it seems like you've kind of gone through that progression of sort of junior dev or calling yourself a junior dev and sort of being in that position, progressing through that. And I don't think I would call you a junior dev anymore, and I don't think you would probably call yourself a junior dev anymore, right?
I still feel like a junior dev, but I've backed away from using that title just because I've found using that title, people automatically like are automatically like turned off from like wanting to hire you or
Mm-hmm.
even considering you. Just because I mean, and it makes sense, I guess, to a degree that they see the word junior and their first thought is, this person's right in the door. They're not going to know anything they're doing. And I mean, I say I still feel like a junior developer because I know there's still like so much I don't even know. I'm only like scratching the surface of the tools that I'm working with.
Yeah.
But at this point, I know I'm only scratching the surface, but I'm comfortable enough where I'm at to where I feel like I'm, I guess, competent enough to not label myself that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So like Crenshaw Dev is saying in the chat, welcome by the way. You got to market yourself aggressively, and that's something I struggle with a lot even now, uh, where I'm looking at roles or things that might interest me, and I'm like, can I do that? Can I really do that? Would I actually be an asset to this company or these people, or would I not be? It's sort of that perennial imposter syndrome that sort of creeps in over and over
Hmm.
time. Like I feel like I've demonstrated to myself that I'm capable of, like having a problem be presented to me and me finding a way to at least solve it, not get completely stuck or not be able to figure out a way through it.
Hmm.
But it still sometimes feels like I'm not past that.
Yeah. I think about once a week or once every other week, I'll get in the groove and I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm so much better. And then I'll hit that one thing that I'm just like, why did I even think I was getting good at anything? That actually happened yesterday. Last week, I was like having some fun, did some streaming, wrote a lot of view code. I was really, really confident in myself, really proud. And then like the task this week hit, and it was like just enough out of my wheelhouse to where it like just completely like shook my confidence in myself.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been thinking about that a little bit too. So, I've been trying to think about how I respond to that situation when I get
Hmm.
into that situation, right? Because it's sort of like this roller coaster ride where you're like, I know what I'm doing, and then you come down the other side. I don't know what I'm doing, and you come up the other side. I feel good. I figured it out, and then you go back down the other side. I don't know what I'm doing. Uh, and it's been dawning on me like that's just part of that's just what that's what the industry is. Like you constantly have problems you don't necessarily know how to solve. The job
Hmm.
is, can you educate yourself enough to solve the problem enough for whoever needs it to be solved, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it's less being super familiar with every single API that you need to work with, whether that's I use API, but what I mean is like tool, right? So,
Hmm.
you know, being a senior dev isn't I'm not being a senior dev isn't okay. I know everything. I know Cypress in and out. I know Jest in and out. I know React testing library in and out. I know React in and out. I know Vue in. It's not that. It's more so you know the general concepts, and so you can get to the end result a little bit faster.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been really reflecting on recently is I've noticed that I've been making it a point over the last couple of months that when I realize I'm in those, on that downward side of the slope, I've been making a point to like stop and check myself. Like, hey, there's like you just said, like being in situations I don't know the solution to off the top of my head is that's part of the job. I'm supposed to be here. This is why they're paying me to be here, and I've really noticed the difference between, I guess, experience levels between me and some of the other developers I work with, because like I run into a situation, not every time, but if like if I know I'm not going to know the answer, I'm just like I hit it and I'm like I kind of like freeze up, like okay, I'm here, I don't know, I'm in a dark room, I don't know where the light is, and then like I pair with one of the senior developers, and they're just like, oh well, I have this flashlight, so I can at least help you find what it is, or maybe I always use a room analogy, like um, I run into a problem I don't know. I'm in a dark room. I don't know where anything is. And maybe the senior dev I come on with has a flashlight they can see around with, or maybe it's something they've worked with, so they just know where the light switch is, and they can just turn it on and be like, "Oh, that's what you're looking for right there."
Yeah, yeah. I'd say that's a pretty good analogy, especially the idea of a flashlight. Flashlight, right? As an
Mm,
earlier or like a less experienced dev, you might have a smaller flashlight. That means that
yeah,
you can see, but you maybe can't see as wide or as far. And then someone with more experience might have a little bit of a brighter flashlight. They can see a little bit wider and farther, but they're still not seeing the entire picture. They're not seeing everything crystal clear, right?
I think I'm working with a candle.
Sometimes I think that too. Yeah, I think it's really. I've been trying to avoid making a bad Bane pun, but it's like I was born in the darkness. Like the idea is that you're comfortable in that, right? Like you're
Mm,
comfortable in not knowing, and you're comfortable in not having the answer immediately. You're comfortable with being able to find it via different
yeah,
senses, whether it's by sight or smell or touch. Um, you're more comfortable with using those tools to be able to figure out what you need to figure out. So yeah, it's just funny because looking around and or like looking at more complicated projects at MetaLab and stuff, I'm thinking to myself like, could I do that? And then originally, the first thought to your mind or my mind is like maybe not, but really I've been learning to sort of strip that voice away and just be more like, yeah, I could do that. I've done harder things or
mm,
I've done things that are similar, so I could do that too. Uh, and it's one thing that, like, I tend to stay at jobs a long time. Like the first two dev jobs I had were like 3.5 years and almost 4 years
mm,
separately. And not that I'm not saying that it's bad to stay at a company for a long time, but I think that what kind of kept me at different places was my fear of being put in uncomfortable positions of, oh, you're doing programming tests, or obviously nobody likes whiteboarding tests, but
mm.
sort of like a fear of not wanting to go through that process or not finding out that I actually don't measure up, and kind of like taking that
Yeah,
blow to the ego. But what's funny is that a lot of it's not even a blow to an ego. It's you didn't answer the trick question correctly in this staged interview that doesn't reflect real life at all. So
yeah.
yeah, I've been learning to get over that
I
recently.
definitely had one of those interviews early 2020. Yeah, that's one thing I've been really trying to focus in and really force myself to grow in is staying in, when I get in those moments of being uncomfortable, like forcing myself to like not to stay in it for for the sake of just beating myself up, but like really soaking it in. Like, okay, why am I in this position? What's the problem that put me here? Is there anything I've learned recently that may make my flashlight a little bit brighter, and then try to walk myself back from there. I got really dependent on just pinging some of the senior devs just because they're super awesome people to work with. Or I mean, a lot of them were just more knowledgeable in how the projects are set up at Foster, anyways. Um, and I know for a while there, I got really dependent on just saying, "Hey, this is what I'm working on. Do you know where the problem? Do you know what the solution is?" And I allowed myself to start doing that because I was telling myself that I'm not doing this because I don't want to learn it. I'm doing this because I have X amount of things on my plate, and I'm trying to keep my momentum up. And even we have every other week I have a meeting with Steven where we talk about like how I'm doing, the projects I'm working on, how I'm feeling about my growth and learning and stuff. And over the last few months, a lot of those conversations have been based around like exactly what we're talking about. Like part of what he really needs from me to really feel like his investment's paying off is seeing those moments where I don't have to reach out to the senior devs as often.
Mm. Yeah. So I'm just sort of thinking about that a little more and thinking about my interactions with uh, more like my coaches and mentees or whoever at MetaLab and junior devs that um, I work with currently, and sort of like similar questions, right? Like, well, how do I kind of get past that? Uh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think I still sort of talk. I do a lot of rubber ducking myself to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'll message Paul or Rockwell or use the Discord and say, hey, I'm stuck. Does anyone have an idea here? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I usually sometimes like I guess what I used to do, and I sort of do this on the opposite side with some of the devs I work with. But like what I used to do is sort of okay, I feel like I'm stuck. I'm going to set a timer and sort of like
Mm-hmm.
time box the problem. And if I can't get it with an X, then I'll message somebody or I'll take a break and come back and try to do it with an X and message, or then I'll message somebody. On the reverse side, if someone messages me and asks for help, I might let it sit for 10 minutes. And then half of the
Yeah.
time they message me within 10 minutes and they're like, oh, I figured it out.
You used to do
Uh,
that to me when you were when I uh, when I was first starting to get into code. I was in Sean's inbox all the time with questions, and I didn't know this at the time, but later you told me that I forget what it was. Like at first you'd wait, I'd ping you with a question, and you'd wait an hour before you responded to see if I got it.
yeah.
And then like by the end, you said you'd worked it down to like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and
An
it
hour sounds
got
a
to
little,
where in most cases I was doing the same thing, coming back with a solution before you had even responded.
yeah, an hour sounds a little aggressive. Uh, but,
I mean, I
but
think
yeah,
this
yeah,
was like this was like 2018 when I was just into jumping into React and Vue.
right. Yeah. No, that's cool. I'm glad that you have those calls and those meetings to sort of think about this stuff. That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I've talked a lot about with my mentees too is how important it is to sort of keep track of these things. Like you said, you kind of think about it. You think about the problem. You walk back a little bit. Think about is there anything new I've recently learned that would help me here?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of you look at the tools that you have. Is there something that I could use that I know of to sort of fix this problem, which is really great. Um, I've heard people talk about work journals and things like that. I sometimes do, but I don't do it consistently. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
step of thinking about the past or thinking about specifically things that you struggled with and how you overcame them are good to have. Yeah, and like I'm just reading through some of the chat now, uh, like really decent makes a good point. Like those senior devs probably wrote a lot of bugs you're trying to fix too. Uh, uh, and also like there should be how to read a legacy code course somewhere because that's probably the hardest thing to do. Yeah, yeah, especially
Mm-hmm.
like you can kind of tell when you're inheriting software that was sort of rushed, or sometimes you can tell it's like the comments aren't here. Things are kind of rushed, things are a little sloppy, things are kind of all over the place. It makes it difficult to
Mm-hmm.
to reason about.
Yeah, I know with Foster specifically, we're working on building kind of like a new, I guess, base scaffolding for how our projects are going to be.
Hmm.
But there's a couple of projects that are just they're older clients that aren't set up that way and probably won't get set up that way just because the work it would take to convert is just too much for what it would be worth.
Yeah.
But then there's this weird thing where like I've been exposed to like the new way things are done, and that's kind of what I've been immersed in more than anything. And every now and then I have to get pulled to some of those legacy clients that are set up completely differently. And in some cases, like they use Twig, which is I'm more familiar with it now, but a couple of months ago I'd never seen it before. And situations like that definitely makes it really tough to navigate those code bases.
Yeah. Is speed like a factor of something? Like you kind of mentioned this a little bit as well before, like you wanting to reach out to people sooner than later because you got a lot on your plate and you want to get it done. But I
Mm,
sometimes wonder for myself, like I see, especially social media, like where I don't, Rocco's gonna yell at me again for being on Twitter, but like seeing on social media the rate that people are seemingly like shipping stuff or producing things, right?
mhm,
And I feel like that kind of contributes also to my idea of feeling insecure if I'm like if I don't know whatever tools I'm trying to use currently like the back of my hand, and B, if it's taking me longer than I probably think it should take me, uh,
mhm.
it sort of contributes to the same thing as well. Is that something that sort of is in your mind as well?
It's in my mind, but it's not it with how foster commerce works. It's not something I should be concerned with. But I've all the other agencies I've worked in have been like fast paced, high capacity, like go 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 go, get it right the first time in half the amount of time you told us you would, that type of stuff, and that's just been ingrained in my work process. Like it, that's a lot of our O3s. That's what we call the one-on-ones O3s. Um, a lot of my O3s have been about like trying to get that out of my system and slowing
Yeah,
down because the project managers will like straight up tell us like we would rather you tell us you can't do the six things and you can only do four and that be right than you tell us you can do six and only get four done.
yeah,
So they very much um, try to like foster a culture of us like slowing down, taking our time, and being like accurate with our scoping and our estimates rather than like trying to crunch out as much as we want. And it's just, I've been in so many agencies where it's the exact inverse of that. That it's taken some time to get it out of my system.
yeah. That's good though that it's working its way out. Same for me
Mm-mm.
with Metal Lab too, where I look at timelines and I'm like, I could probably do that, and then I have to stop myself. Nope, not relevant. Not yeah, it's not relevant for me to be putting my workaholism, onto those things, I guess.
Mm, yeah.
But no,
Another
that
thing
sounds good.
they do that helps us with that is like when they ask us to scope things, they don't ask for like specific hours. Like this is going to take me 2 hours. They ask for I forget what the system's called, but we use like t-shirt size. Is it an extra small? Is it a small, a medium, or large? Where extra small is like half a day, small is a full day, medium is 2 to 4, large being a full week, and then you're working on up like from there, which makes it really easy on me because I'm not a project manager. I'm not good at like that type of like planning and organization. So it's easy for me to just say, maybe this is an entire day. If I get it done in less, then I can move on to the other thing and be ahead of schedule.
Right.
I think it's what is it in Monday? Not Monday in Clubhouse. They have this the point system. Like
Hmm.
this task is 1 points, 2 points, that whole thing. We basically use that system, but with t-shirt sizes instead.
Yeah, we do that, but we just have arbitrary numbers. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a 0.5 could be, you could do many of those in a day, many more than one. One
Mm-hmm.
is 1 to 2 days, two is 2 to 3 days, three is it's strange, but that's what we do. Kind of similar thing. It seems like really decent. Likes the idea of a Fibonacci story point. I could get behind that. um, cool. So what kind of technologies have you been using recently? I think you mentioned some earlier, right? You
Yeah,
talked about Cypress, Vue, and Tailwind, I think.
yeah. Cypress View, Tailwind. We've been building in Storybook into our new larger project, so we have the library of components for the developers and the designers to work from. Um, there's been some Twig and a little bit of PHP in there, but that's in a lot of the older projects that we're kind of getting away from. So like sometimes I'll have to touch it, but in most cases, it's just like writing a bunch of Vue, specifically Nuxt. All of our new stuff is going to be Nuxt. I feel like I'm just talking up like Foster Commerce build, but we just started like a week ago, so like everyone's all amped up about it.
That's all good. I've been seeing some Twitter activity about it as well. Are you
Yeah,
guys using? Are you all using Vue 3 or are you using Vue 2?
we're still on Vue 2 right now. I think one of our senior devs looked at Vue 3 and there was, uh, I don't remember what it was, but there was something strange that broke something somewhere else in the setup. So we're just on 2 now. I think one of our clients is on Vue 3, but they're a Foster client, but it's not really like our product. They just kind of use us to like augment their dev team sometimes. So they'll basically just like rent some of us for a week or something
Right.
like that.
Okay. Yeah, because I haven't actually used Vue 3 myself. I think I switched to React out of job mandation. I don't even know if mandation is a word, but
Mandation.
yeah,
We're coining it here.
I think that was. I think it was right around when Vue 3 was sort of in beta. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it had been released yet, but people were talking about hooks and things like that, and so I kind of like went into React in a sweet spot of like post class components with hooks,
Mm-hmm.
functional components and hooks, and so I missed the sort of growing pain transition from the Vue side of things, and I missed the growing pain transition side of the class component stuff on React as well. So it was pretty good timing.
Yeah, I think I got into React like right before hooks came out. So like some of the courses I'd taken on it, I was still using like the class component setup. And then like a few months after that, they all like hooks came out. So like there's a little bit of a growing pain, and like all this stuff I just learned was immediately out the window in the old way to do it. But I guess it was early enough in my learning that it wasn't that big of a shift to jump over to it.
Yeah. So what's
React's fun though. I like Vue because Vue feels like it has guardrails for a lot of stuff. It makes a lot of decisions for me, so I can just build fun
mm,
stuff.
mm.
But if I ever just want to like, I don't know, throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks, I'll just like spin up a React app and just see what I can make happen.
Yeah, convention is definitely a good way to put it. That's something that I miss sometimes from the Vue world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with React, it doesn't necessarily subscribe or prescribe, sorry, things to you, and I sort of miss that sometimes. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a place for both, but yeah, I do definitely miss the prescription at times. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth now because like sometimes I get into Next, I'm like, too many rules, and so I think I'm sort of somewhere in the middle now after having more experience there. Really, for me, I suppose it's
Mm-hmm.
just I don't want to be writing, things if I don't necessarily have to be writing them for any good reason. That's like my main gripe with stuff these days. But
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask, what sort of areas are you interested? So you're working with Vue, you're working with Nuxt, you're working with Storybook. So like decent in the chat saying component driven development. Yeah, that's awesome. Are there is there an area in tech that you're interested in, you want to like move more into or learn more about?
Um, I think right now I kind of just want to like really build out like my T shape and do a deep dive on um getting really good with Vue, or not even specifically Vue, just maybe kind of like the um like I know most of like the foundational stuff of Vue and React. So maybe now I want to like focus more on like how to properly like structure a project and components and like passing the data around and like, in the safest ways and in the best practice ways and all that stuff. Like I know how to do it in a lot of cases, but I don't necessarily always know the right way to do it. So maybe that's probably where I'm wanting to focus the most next.
I think a lot of cases that's subjective too. Some
Mm-hmm.
cases maybe not, but a lot of cases I think that's subjective. It depends on who you talk to or what school you follow. If you're a Kent Dodds fan or if you're somebody else's fan, I don't know. You might have like different solutions. I think that's why I appreciated Vue 2 in a lot of ways is because there was sort of a way to do it and you just kind of followed that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So really, it seems like going deeper with the frameworks and not necessarily going wider and looking for anything new.
Yeah, pretty much. And so what's funny is I work in Vue all the time, but I have a side project that's a React app. I spun it up as like a portfolio filler that's kind of caught traction and is now an entire thing with like a small team of people contributing to it. So I get to like, I guess I get to dance on both sides of the line at whenever I feel.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Get to experience both. That's uh,
mm,
that's one thing I sort of miss from my old startup jobs was the variety. Because right now I'm just doing React, just doing front end on one
hmm
project, and um, I kind of miss the variety of like owning a feature end to end from ideation to technical planning to implementation, front and back end and stuff. I liked
hmm
that mixture of responsibilities and roles. I think it was also a good sort of like to cross pollinate ideas from different communities. Like if I'm writing JavaScript all day, maybe I look at Go or I don't know Elixir or whatever. Like look at what their
hmm
paradigms are, how they approach solving problems, and there's something that I can do or pull that makes sense back to my JavaScript knowledge.
Yeah, and when I first started the project, it was just create React app. I refactored it to be Next.js at the end of last year. But when I was initially setting it up, I was actually referencing like some old Vue projects or Nuxt projects put together. Like when I was trying to figure out how to do like my directory structure, folder structure, all that fun stuff. I referenced a Nuxt app to put all that
Right,
together.
right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, I mean that
Mm.
makes total sense. AJC Web Dev says that web dev trends are just barely not astrology, and I agree with that. You can Google right now React spa folder structure, and you'll get 50 blog posts, and each one of them will have comments on why the post is incorrect in some way. Well, you see, once you get to enterprise level, you need to have, and it's like, well, maybe I'm never gonna like. This isn't supposed to be an enterprise app. This isn't supposed to be a micro front end. This isn't, uh,
Yeah.
just let it be what it is. I don't know. That's so like I for a long, long time I was just reading blogs and looking at tutorials and thinking that I was actually learning stuff. But really, just having constant, um, push from people like Paul or Greg to just write my own code, make my own
hmm
mistakes. There's nothing wrong with learning history or things like that. Learning from other people's mistakes and learning from insight, that's important. But it's also important just to write code and see what works for you, what sticks and what doesn't,
Yeah.
So that's what I've been trying to do lately. And I always like it's that muscle memory always comes back where like you're doing something. I'm like, is this really the right way to be doing it? Then I'll like stop. And then I've lost no momentum. It's like,
hmm
what would Rockwell say right now? Done is the engine no more or something like that. He pulled out some saying from I forget what it's called. Something
Also
manifesto.
done.
Cult of Done, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying. Like it's funny because I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm still sort of working some of these things. Working through
hmm
these things, kind of sort of internalizing these things. So yeah, just write more code, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. I know with Protege started out, it was just me building it, and then I met a guy named Andy through Twitter who was really interested in the project. So he came on with me, and then he was a project manager wanting to get into programming, and he had some React chops. Um, so we kind of had like this like unofficial relationship where like we were both writing code, but more of the project management was on me since it was my project to begin with,
Mm.
and he was wanting to get out of that. So I was trying to like keep as much of that away from him as possible. Um, but that really changed up how I was writing code, like how I would document the stuff, because I had someone else to talk to bounce ideas off of, and even beyond that, even just to consider like okay, I'm going to write this component, it's going to do this, this, and this. When Andy comes to this, is this going to make sense, or is keeping other developers in consideration when I'm trying to write code, and structure things, which was new to me because before that, all I'd ever done was um, a contract with you for a little bit, where we wrote some Tailwind, we built some little features here and there, and the project management was not in my hands. And before that, I was just email support, so there wasn't anything like that. And it really made me like sit back and think about kind of all the processes I was using and how everything was getting orchestrated all together. And now, fast forward over a year later, and there's, let me look in the Slack real quick. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us building this thing together. And we're all kind of shipping. We're all working on one big feature right now, which has been really interesting to try to plan, to try to structure, to try to coordinate, like who's doing the different pieces and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And although that is kind of more like project management, task management type stuff, it has made me learn a lot more about the code I'm writing it, how I'm writing it, and why I'm writing it that way.
Yeah. So, with all of that being said, where in your mind is the difference between a junior dev and not a junior dev?
I would say you're beyond a junior dev when you can take something beyond the, I guess, tutorial level of an app. So, like, when you're learning a framework, there's always like this tutorial to build a to-do list and build a builder this or that. And when you're, in my mind, when you're comfortable enough to stretch beyond that, and I mean, even if it doesn't really work, but just like having that confidence to step past what your comfort zone is and coming out the other end with something.
Okay.
I think that's where I would draw the line.
So I think I would put it more along the lines of what you just described before that. So yes, someone being able to finish a project or write code that works, right? But I've seen a lot of people like Sultan saying, like, when you can bring a project across the finish line without supervision. Yes, in a sense, I agree with that, because you have to be able to complete a project. But I could light a van on fire and roll it down the hill, and it would still go across the finish line. Does but is it like in spirit? Is that sort of the goal? What we were going for was a burning van rolling down a hill or down the street, or
as long as it lands by the river.
Right. So, but the things that you just articulated, though, I think speaks a lot to how much you've grown over the last couple of years. So, talking about the project management aspect of it, talking about thinking about how other people are going to perceive and read and understand this code, talking about how maintainable this thing will be for the other people that I'm working with. I think there's a lot in there of what you had to say that speaks to me about that progression from going to a junior, where you might purely be focusing on the code that you're producing and not much around it, to the code producing being a part of what you're producing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I can see that.
Yeah, and like Sultan's clarifying, like managing time properly and completing tasks on your own and producing code that meets quality standards. Yeah, like I think that all goes in hand. But I think, the focus I think for me, you spoke about like that shift in focus of purely just hitting the letter of a task or a deliverable to thinking about the other people on the team and everything you said so nicely. So. Yeah, it's cool. Like, I wanted to have you back on because I wanted to sort of just let you hear you talk a little bit more about that, and sort of like how you've internalized where you're at, how you've kind of like gotten to be where you are, and what you wanted to learn next. I think that's really, I like hearing that kind of stuff, because for me, not that I'm some old wise developer, but for me, it also helps me sort of think about my goals and what I'm working on, and where I want to be. Yeah, so like Crenshaw Dev is in the chat saying, like, and another option, proactively finding opportunities to improve things, processes, patterns, etc. So yeah, the focus stops being purely on the deliverable in the Jira ticket or whatever, to the whole picture kind of thing. So
Hmm. And I think that's still a part that that I'm working on. So like I actually did it earlier today. Like I finished up the deliverable I was working on, and then the first thing I did was I pinged Benoit, one of our senior devs. I was like, "Hey, I want you to look at this with me. I want you to see what I've done, and then I want you to explain to me where, because I saw it as done and as best as it could be from my perspective. Um, so I wanted to hop on a call and have his perspective of, okay, I would do it this way, and it would make it, maybe this much more flexible, or this much more reusable, or this much more, um, safe in regards to not potentially developing a bug anywhere.
mm,
Um, and that's one area I know I still need to grow in, but I'm definitely like proactively trying to make sure I fill that gap somehow.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it sounds like
Mm.
you're on the way. Like I think what's cool is that like listening to you talk and listening to some other people have been talking to recently, it makes me feel like you all are so much farther along where I was, like with the same amount of time in that you have, which is awesome. Like really is really awesome. Like that would
Mm.
be my hope is that, you know, I can not saying that I've like helped you like every step of your career or anything like that, but that's my one want is like, or one of the things that like drives me is wanting to help people up the ladder and help them up like
Hmm.
faster than I kind of went because I think I took my sweet time learning a lot of
Yeah.
things and sort of ignoring stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I can confidently say that you did have a big hand in that, especially in the earlier days when I had no idea what I was doing. But what's funny is you say that I'm moving faster than what you were in the span of time, comparing span of times, and I'm not. I don't think I'm mentoring this. A friend of mine's been learning code since last October. I don't feel like I'm mentoring him because I don't know enough to mentor people. But I'm kind of like putting resources in front of him when he asks questions and stuff. And I don't know if you remember this, but like the first 13 months I was learning to code, like I avoided NPM like the plague because I was just terrified of it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
yeah,
NPM, I thought NPM was an entire language itself that I'd have to learn, in parallel to JavaScript. So, and I didn't want to do that. Um, and now I'm helping my friend learn to code, or he's learning to code. I'm just giving him resources, and he's like 10 months in building his React app. He just built this past week. He built a React app connected to Firebase. Like 10 months into learning code, and like 10 months into me learning code, I was like still terrified to even like install Node on my machine.
yeah, yeah. 10 months in me into learning into 10 months of me into learning into code was like a WordPress theme with
Yeah.
jQuery or something. Yeah, that's wild to think about. I wanted to bring this up really quick too because there's some cool stuff happening in the chat here.
Mhm.
So like Sultan was asking, like, should a senior developer be overseeing other people? Is that an applied part of the role? And Crenshaw said that they've observed this expectation that senior devs can morph into professional like PMs or interviewers or managers and other roles that they haven't been formally trained for. And
Mhm.
I definitely have observed that as well. And yeah, it's tough. So my answer was, I think that they should be open to helping and offering advice, but I think that in most cases there should be someone like a lead, like team lead or a project lead that's actually their responsibility. So as a
Mhm.
senior dev, I would be open to, hopping on a call if someone's stuck or, but really like my main priorities are to finish what I am like what I've been tasked to do. But I don't want to be closed off because a lot of questions I get now are, well, I am a senior, but I want to progress to a lead. How do I get that experience? I'm not getting signed tickets where I'm getting reps at those things. I'm not getting
Mhm.
put on projects where I'm getting reps at those things. So how do I get that? And my answer is, well, ask the team lead, for opportunities or whatever. But yeah, that is an interesting observation. Like I've definitely observed that as well. Um,
Mhm.
but no, to go back to what you're saying, that's awesome. That same thing. Like you're looking for people that are interested in it and helping them just because they're interested in it. Like that's how I learned. So
Yeah.
that's super cool. I always love sharing experience that way because people would just answer my Twitter DMs. They didn't have
Mhm.
to. I didn't pay them money, but they did answer anyway. So I'm forever
Yeah.
grateful to all those interactions.
I actually said something to that same effect. I interviewed for a company a couple weeks back, but they were asking. So we talked a bit about Protege and about I guess mainly about Protege, and they were asking because like all my side projects have had some element of like trying to provide a service to people that are fresher in the door than I am, and they were asking about why that was. Um, and I think it's because of that same thing. Like when I started to get into it, you were even though we hadn't played music together in like almost 10 years, I think, well, maybe not 10 years, 6 or 7 years at that point, you were like more than willing to like uh, jump in and answer my questions. I remember early on, um, randomly tweeting at West Boss when I had like 3 followers, expecting like I came from the tattoo industry where things are very much different, and like rock star tattoo artists don't respond to people with low follower counts because that's just not going to help them and
Yeah.
game the algorithm at all. And then it was a bit of a culture shock when it came to programming because it's the exact opposite. Just about anybody you can reach on Twitter is more than likely going to respond, and just about I want to say literally every person I've met in the tech industry has been, if they haven't helped me, they've been willing to. Um, and I've just always been extremely appreciative of that, especially coming from tattooing, where it's the exact opposite. No one shares secret. No one helps others. Everyone's just grinding for themselves. So I'm very much the same way. Like I've only gotten here because of other people extending the helping hand. So I feel like I owe it to other people to do the same if when I'm in a position to.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, so we're rolling up in an hour here, so we should probably wrap up the recording part of this anyway. But yeah, I wanted to say thanks again for being willing to be on the show. I know it's late there, and I know you got 2 kids,
No
so
problem.
you got a lot going on.
They're both asleep now.
Yeah, I probably would be asleep too then in that case. Um, but yeah, no, thanks again for coming around. And
Mhm.
so you talked about your project. I don't know if you mentioned that it was Protege, um, but I
Mhm.
wanted to mention that people could find it at protege.dev.
Yeah,
Yeah, protege.
Protege.dev. It started as a cure for my own itch. It's a job board specifically for remote junior developer opportunities. Um, so far, a lot of the jobs on there, I just kind of source myself. I'll spend a couple hours a week, or once or twice a month, go and find some to post on the company's behalf.
Mhm.
But we're about to roll out a big feature where there's like user accounts, so like companies can create an account and then post and track their jobs and the applicants, and the candidates can do the inverse of applying and tracking their applications. So we're hoping to get that in the hands of alpha testers in a couple of weeks, or actually by the end of next week. So yeah, and it's all open source. There's a contributors page on there. We try to keep it so it's a React app, Next.js with Tailwind. We've had discussions about going to TypeScript, but we decided not to just because we want to keep it. We want to try to keep it as easy for people right in the door to contribute if they want to. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that's a whole passion project I plan to sink a lot more years into.
My advice there would be you can get really far with JS doc and prop typing.
Yeah, that's what we do right now. We have prop types in there.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. So protege.dev. You're on
Mhm.
Twitter as well, and you stream chess on Twitch, which is pretty awesome. How can people find you on Twitter? Is it what's your handle? Is it Drew Clem?
I don't even remember.
I think it's at Drew Clem. I'll make sure to put
It's
the correct
it's
thing in.
Drew Clem CR8 because the good one was taken.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, so I'll
Yeah,
make sure that's in the show notes.
yeah, you can find me on Polywork at Drew Clem. On Twitch, I'm Drew Clem underscore. I do stream some chess. I actually streamed a lot of programming last week. So Steven's okay with me streaming when the client's okay with it. And last week I was working on our own site, so I just streamed pretty much every day.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, cool. Yeah, so that's Drew Clem CR8 on Twitter, Drew Clem on Polywork, and Drew Clem underscore on Twitch.
Drew
Cool.
Clem
And
everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And if you have any feedback, you can, relay it to him or you can relay it to the show. If you want to reach us at the show, you can get us on Twitter at DNCcast. If you want to check out the show notes, the stuff that we talked about today, all of Drew's socials and some other things like you mentioned, virtual coffee community, I want to shout them out. So they'll be in the show notes. You can get to the show notes at dnc.show or just swipe up in left or right or down. I don't know, whatever podcast reader you're using. You can swipe a direction and you'll see the show notes. What else we get going on? I mentioned the Discord a little bit today. So, we do stream live on Thursdays on Twitch at 6 p.m. Pacific. But if you can't make the Twitch streams, we have a Discord community full of people that are, wanting to learn and wanting to help others and not just programming, but, cooking and gardening and finance and whatever people are into, they're talking about it at Discord. So if that's something you're looking for, again, check the show notes and there'll be a invite waiting for you there. And I think that's it. I think
That's all I got.
Yeah, Rockwell does half of it, so I don't even know. But yeah, no, thanks again for coming around, man. It's awesome to sort of watch your growth from a distance. Watch you kind of work on different things and move. So I'm happy. I was happy to have you back on.
Yeah, happy to be here. I think we just talked about grabbing virtual coffee together, so
Yeah,
best way to do it right here.
yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon then.
All right, later.
Okay. Recording done.
Yeah, recording stopped. Let me save this before I forget.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Open sourcing tattoos. Would that be like putting the 3D the tattoos out there for like 3D tattoo guns to slap on people or what? Can you
I
imagine?
think
what they
open
would look
source
like, Drew?
tattoos is. I see open source tattoos, and I think it's already out there on Instagram. Someone posts a picture of it, and then everyone just grabs it and redoes it.
Opens a PR against a tattoo. Yeah, can you imagine that though? Like if someone tried to lay still with their own 3D printer, like it's hard enough to get people to lay still enough to get tattoo them now, let alone if they're having to lay under a machine or something like that.
There's actually there was a team from London that did that. They 3D printed a machine that then I think all it ever tattooed was a circle, but they got that far. So the tech probably already exists. We just got to put it under a catchy name and start charging people.
Yeah. Yeah. So Drew mentioned earlier, but he did tattoo a lot of my arm and he did it in 2 different sessions. So like one was like 7 hours and the next one was 8 hours. It's brutal.
Yeah. It's a lot of feathers though.
Luckily you used a rotary gun. So it wasn't it wasn't a jackhammer.
Yeah. That actually, do you remember the month you had that done? It wasn't too terribly long ago that it popped up in my Facebook memories. It's like once a year, the picture of your Sharpied arm pops up in my Facebook memories. I don't remember when it was. Maybe a month or so ago.
It must have been like June or, in the summertime because it rains in the winter here. And I remember when I moved to California, it didn't rain for like months. So it had to have been in the summertime.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Every time it comes by, I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
I also remember I didn't realize how intense the sun was here. Like I was used to the southeast where there was like humidity and stuff. You could feel when it was hot. But I remember one of my friends was having a garage sale and I went and sat on the stoop for his garage sale and I got burned to a crisp immediately. Like it must have been 20 minutes and I was just like burnt up. Yeah.
I mean, I burn if I'm outside for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Regardless of where I'm at.
Yeah. It was an experience.
I go to mow the grass. And my wife was like, "Did you put sunscreen on?"
Yeah. Do you sunscreen your tattoos a lot, or you just let it fly?
I don't anymore. I did back in the day, but they're gonna fade 10 to 15% over time, anyways. So
I'm the same way now. I will put sunscreen on because I want to burn, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I was actually looking at this. Is probably one of the oldest ones I have here. It's got like a bunch of like soft yellows and oranges in it, and a lot of it's faded, but it's just there enough to where you can tell it's there. So it's good enough for me. I feel like they kind of have that Um, like when you get your first guitar, you're like, oh, this is my baby guitar. I'm gonna take care of it. And then by the time you get 10 guitars, like you're okay with a couple of them getting dings or like scratches and stuff. It's just part of the process at that point. I kind of
Yeah.
feel like
So
that towards tattoos.
yeah. So what is going on with Apple Music right now? They just don't want to play. Do I have to quit and start it over? Um, so this tattoo on my arm. So the tattoo artist I have here, Adrian, is super into surfing, and so I have this on my arm here, like this way, and I got it done, and he was like, "All right, let's go surfing." I was like, "Excuse me." Like he was putting the saran wrap on my arm. He's like, "All right, let's go surfing." And okay, so basically, like tattoo's a scrape, right? You don't want to put salt in it, let alone dirty salt water. And so anyway, he was like, "Oh, it'll be fine." He wrapped it up with saran wrap, and I got in a wetsuit. It felt so gross. I went surfing, and now I have like these spots on the bottom of it where it like scabbed up and stuff. We played music
Oh, that just sounds brutal.
it was real bad. I didn't like it. It felt gross. We played music in South Georgia in like I don't even know early 2010s.
Yeah, I think Eastbound and Down was from around 2010 to 2012. I think you guys were going a little bit before that and wrapped up. I guess how the bands wrapped up at about the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Eastbound and we were kind of like the I don't know, like we had fun writing music and playing shows, but we just and when we had like work ethic, we were none of us were just very good at like planning or organizing. So we'd have practice when we could, we'd play shows when we could manage to get one, and that was about it.
sure. I wish sometimes that we would have taken it a little less seriously. Uh, I don't know. Sometimes it was a little bit much. Like, yeah, I don't know. It was kind of like we probably would have had been together longer if it would have been more fun and less stressful. I think like so basically a senior position musician. For us it was like constantly trying to put together tours or get on tours and that was cool, but
Hmm.
like it was sort of like becoming a job, right? So like for us it was
Yeah.
like come home from tour and freaking like you'd have no money and then you'd have to get a job and work for a while and hustle and not everyone would get a job or work and then it's like there's these weird like you know well I'm working harder than you and it's just
Yeah.
drama that happens and I don't know it sometimes I wish it would have just been
I've
more
definitely been
fun
in bands. Yeah, I've definitely been in bands that were like that, and I think when we put Eastbound and Down together, I kind of had an inkling that that was probably going to be the last band that I was ever able to be in. Uh, I guess in a serious capacity. Um, so we had this idea from the beginning that like no part of this is going to be stressful. If any of it starts to like stress someone out, we're going to not do it or we're going to change course. And I think that was probably one of the most fun bands I was in because that's I mean we took it at the face level. Like we had fun with it. We wrote songs and we didn't go beyond that. We didn't try to send out demos. We didn't try to stretch ourselves too thin by playing shows further away than what we could have reasonably afford or anything like that. We just and I mean it was a really enjoyable time. We wrote a bunch of fun music. We met a bunch of people. I think so. Me and you kind of knew each other before the Eastbound and Down days because I played in a metal band before that, a couple of metal bands before that, but we never really like got to hang out or talk during that period. And it was in Eastbound and Down when we played some shows together that we actually got to hang out and get to know each other a little better.
yeah yeah those were always fun it was yeah it was always just for me it was always just like if I wasn't doing band stuff I was at Starbucks working on my laptop that was basically it
Yeah.
trying to grind but
I remember we took a break on working on your arm, and you popped out your laptop and was doing something. And I think that was the first time I ever got a glimpse of code because I saw you the screen of your laptop, and I remember asking like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "I was building a website." I think I said something to the effect of like, "Is that what the backside of it looks?" or something like that.
yeah
I
yeah
forget exactly.
Yeah, I was making WordPress themes around then. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, it was a lot of I don't know. It was a lot of it was hard because like I was freelancing at that point, so it was
Hmm.
like it was truly a grind because I was drumming up the work and doing it was like I was doing the whole business thing, so it was kind of
Yeah.
tough to sort of deal with, but it gave me a lot of flexibility, which was nice. It's just that there was sort of no rest time. Pardon my pun. There was
Yeah.
no time for rest. Uh, yeah, yeah. So like you had to choose between software development making money or music and making no money. Yeah. So for me, like when I realized like I probably was done with music, like we were just coming off of that last tour we were on, and we had it was just one heck of it was one bad tour. The routing was wild. So I
Is that
recall
when
like
the bus broke down or the van broke down?
one of the yeah. So the routing for this was insane. Like the tour started in Arkansas, so we drive from Georgia to Arkansas, and then it's like, all right, we're gonna play a few shows across, and we're gonna skip Texas and go to New Mexico, and then we're gonna come back and play shows in Texas, and then we're gonna go up to Louisville, like play all the way up to Louisville. Tour done. It's like, but then we start in Arkansas. What is happening? So it is just like so much wasted gas money in these long drives, and so we were driving through Oklahoma, and there's a flash blizzard. We didn't have much money, so our tires weren't in the best shape, and we had a SUV and a trailer, and the trailer swung out, and so we just kind of jackknifed, and we are going down the highway, and a semi hit our truck, like our semi like hit. Luckily, it sheared everything off, but it like hit the headlight and just like clipped everything off the truck.
Hmm.
And so then, God, what was his name? I can't believe I don't remember his name. The drummer was like, "My truck." Like what we're gonna do? I'm like, I don't know. None of us have any money. You're not getting paid for this, dude. You know, like I can't just buy you a new truck. And like the trailer was a little bit jacked up. Yeah, we got super. So my brother was driving. I was in the passenger seat. I look up and I just see tires just going in front of us. So anyway, we continue on, and the SUV sounds like a two-stroke tractor just down the
Oh
highway.
wow.
Yeah, so we finished the rest of the tour on that stupid SUV and broken down trailer and stuff. And anyway, so yeah, that like took all of our money, and I was just kind of like over it at the end of that. I was like, I've done this enough times now where it's like not fun anymore. It's not glamorous at all anymore.
Yeah, that's what Really Decent says. Touring also isn't as glamorous as it seems when you're like 15.
Yeah,
It's mostly
yeah,
driving and waiting around shitty venues, which is true. The first punk band I was in, I was 17 at the time, where I was 16 when I joined the band, and then the bass player and the drummer were a year older than me, so they were about to graduate high school, and they already knew that if we didn't get signed, this was probably the one band where we did try to make like a solid effort at it. They were like, if we're not signed by the end of the summer, then we're starting college. The the band's breaking up. The bass player was going to Berkeley School of Music in Boston. The drummer went somewhere in Chicago, I think. So, but we played shows like all the time, and we had a demo we recorded at Earth Sound in Valdosta, which has done some pretty big records. Did the first to last record.
hmm
Um, so we had like 6 grand in the bank, and like 17 and 18-year olds were like, we have so much money right now. So we just booked a whole bunch of shows from Tifton all the way up to Manhattan and back.
yeah.
I think we were on the road for like a month and a half. Well, we were supposed to be on the road for 4 weeks, and then our other guitarist like just keeps booking shows while we're on the road. So yeah, that whole tour was. I mean, I guess we were just young and naive. We were like, we're on tour. We're gonna play huge shows because we're on tour. That's how tours work, right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest crowd we played to was maybe 20 people. And I don't even know how this happened because we weren't a Christian band. Our guitarist somehow got us booked at a Christian rock concert in Wisconsin. And that was the biggest show we played to.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even because we were there. That was just because other people were there.
Was
At
it
that
pay to
time, was
play?
it pay to play?
Uh
No, we had so one thing our guitarist did do was he found us a booking agent. His name was Daisy. Um,
Makes
so he
sense.
negotiated. I don't know how he came up with them because we were about to do it all ourselves. I think he's like, guys, I got us a booking agent. His name's Daisy. He's going to do all this stuff for us. So he quote negotiated for us to get a percentage at the door, and I don't think we ever got a dime at any show we played.
No, no, they'll be like, "Do you sell any merch? All right, give me that money." They'll take it right out of your hands.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy that unless there's like a sheer luck involved, it's like your bands that are breaking into the scene have rich families that are putting like buying them onto tour packages.
Hmm.
That's how they get exposure, unless it's social media or something other. Like again, another strike, like lightning strike luck kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's people paying thousands of dollars to be on an opening spot on some tour. That's how it happens. Pay to play for
Yeah. And
sure.
this was for the tour we went on. This was kind of like I guess right before MySpace really became the way to pump your band up. It was in like 2005, 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. It had to be 2005 because I graduated then, and they had already graduated, I
Yeah,
believe.
it sounds decent. It sounds like a similar eras for us too. But very similar situation too, where you got to pay the bookers or you got to they have no incentive to put you on the show unless you have a following, and you can't get a following unless you play shows,
Yep.
unless you get TikTok famous or whatever. But TikTok didn't exist back then, so yeah, it definitely pay to play.
I remember we played a showcase for Drive Through Records in where was this? New Jersey, I think. And we didn't know what a showcase was. We just knew we were playing for a record label and there was a potential we could get signed from it. So my two tuning knobs got broken off of my guitar in the trailer between the
Oh
previous
no,
show and landing at the showcase. So I had to borrow. Luckily, we like befriended another band there, and he let us their guitarist let me borrow his guitar. But they wanted to be like Breaking Benjamin all over again. So he had this like huge like leather guitar strap that didn't adjust, and it was like to me like hung below my knees, and I usually kind of play like
yeah,
comfortably up top somewhere. So I missed a bunch of notes. I wasn't even playing with my guitar. His guitar wouldn't even stay in tune, and then we didn't have a press packet. We didn't even know that was a thing we needed. So our guitarist grabs a folder, a sheet of paper, and a crayon out of we had borrowed my mom's Suburban. He
yeah,
wrote down some stuff on it, slipped one of our demos into it, and the drive through rep, like we played our shows, we dropped it off, and we were walking out the venue, and then he stops and calls us. But this is the only band it happened to that we saw. He stops us at the door and calls us back. We were like, "Oh my god, is this it? Is this it?" And he's like, "What the did you just hand me? What is this shit?" And we're
yeah,
like, "It's a press back." And he's like, "No, no, you do not come into my showcase with this and hand it to me. Get out."
yeah, yeah.
And then at that point, we're like, "All right, guys, let's just enjoy tour because there was our one shot."
Yeah, it's so that again, that's why I'm so thankful for a lot of the stuff in the tech industry. It's like not that,
Yeah.
not that. Thinking of like shows that we played, this is I've had a few times in my life where things across the U.S. have connected back to like Earth Sound Studios or like some
Mhm.
places that I played in the band. So like I was in Vermont eating gelato, talking with my jujitsu instructor, whose wife was talking with somebody who had a friend that they brought with, who had also recorded a record at Earth Sound Studio with
Nice.
Lee. And I was like, no way. Uh,
Yeah.
and then another time, so we played the show in, what was this place called? Floyd's Music Box. It was in Tallahassee, Florida.
Mhm.
And so I remember we park, you park in the back or whatever. It's basically just a bar. And I remember walking through the back doors, and there's like these little booth areas that are for like the merch table, kind of like VIP areas for the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a hazmat suit laying in one of the booths. I was like, that's not great. So I go over to the bartender and be like, hey, can you guys get that out of here? Like, that's weird. And so we play the show. That night was weird anyway. And come to find out that the place got closed down not like maybe the next week later because of E. coli.
Wow.
And then and then and then again, fast forward years, I'm living in Vermont. Um, one of the people that trains at the school is my friend. His girlfriend also trains there. She was from Florida. She remembers Floyd's Music Box, and she remembers it closing down because of some health thing.
Mm.
It's like,
Is that the was Floyd's where they had like this little like subfloor right in front of the stage, like the floor like dropped down a step?
mhm.
I saw Newfound Glory there. Kiata got kicked out of that show because you're not supposed to crowd surf, but
No, you're
they
not.
were playing like yeah you're not because they don't want people to crowd surf because the floor's there or like there's I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but there's the stage, there's the floor, but then like the last 5 feet in front of the stage is just like dropped like 2 feet for whatever reason. So like everyone was crowd surfing. So Kiata jumps up and goes crowd surfing. Kiata's an old friend of mine from like literally kindergarten. Um, and then for whatever reason, security snatches him of all people down. It was Newfound Glory, The Wonder Years, and I can't remember who else. There was a third band. But so they have like they literally have him like in a headlock dragging him out the back door. And the
Dude.
Wonder Years had already played and they were back at their booth and they saw that they were dragging him out. And two of the members from Wonder Years started fighting security because they were pissed that they were dragging Kiata out for crowd surfing when there were like 12 other people still doing the same thing.
Right.
It was wild. They also
Uh,
told me happy birthday at that show.
you say they headlocked and pulled him out. So
Mm-hmm.
the same night we were there, it's funny you mentioned you're not supposed to crowd surf. They take it very seriously. So
Mm-hmm.
he's talking about how the floor drops. It's literally if you're in the front row, you're looking up at the stage like this, and and I remember this very clearly that there's this guy there. He's a bigger dude. He was wearing like a sailor captain hat, like a white hat with a black bill. I remember that very clearly. He thinks that he's going to do like a crowd run, so get up on the stage and run across the crowd. And so he tries it. He kicks this woman in the head. Uh, the biggest bouncer I've ever seen in my life puts him in a headlock and drags him out the back door. So maybe it was the same guy because he just jacked this dude up. Uh, so it was pretty wild. So I'm standing out by the back door. I'm like looking in, and I see this happening. So I kind of like get out of the way. And this bouncer, again, gigantic, throws this dude out, and everyone in the alley starts chanting like, let him go or some other thing. So the bouncer's like,
Mm-hmm.
am I about to get like, gang beat by a bunch of randos in this alley? It was a very strange night.
Yeah, that's more or less what happened. Is at once I remember once the Wonder Years jumped onto security, like a few other people just from the crowd like joined in, like
Hmm.
because the Wonder Years jumped in like, hey, don't throw a fan out when he's not the only one doing it, and then other people jumped in like, hey, don't beat up our band. We came here to see them.
Yeah.
It was almost an entire brawl.
Yeah. So
There's so many wild stories with music in my life.
the Tallahassee shows in particular are always weird.
Tallahassee can just be weird in general.
Yeah.
I remember I got randomly threatened after a show in New York. Like we played at this bar and then we were just standing outside smoking cigarettes, and this like Jersey Shore, this is before Jersey Shore, I think. Well, Jersey Shore looking dude comes up and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, smoking a cigarette." And he's like, "Did you hit my girl?" I was like,
No.
"No, I didn't hit your girl. We'd literally just walked off stage. I was like, I just got done playing his set. Like, I don't know who you are." And his car was parked across the road, and I guess his girl was sitting in the passenger seat, and he points at her and he's like, "She said you're the one that hit her." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you, dude. I've been here. The 15 people that just watched us play can vouch for me. I was just up there for the last hour."
Yeah.
And then he just kind of like he glances back at her and like looks back at me and like I mean he's a big dude. He could have like I was 17 at the time. He could have broke me in half just by blinking hard enough if he wanted to. And then I guess I don't know if he was drunk or what. This was in like middle of New York somewhere. And then he was like, "You're lucky I'm tired." I'm like,
Okay.
"All right. I don't know what to do with that. Thank you."
Yeah. That's so dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why like I have no desire at all whatsoever. Like I don't mind if like friends want to go out or like want to go. My little curtain. Watson, move my curtain. I have no like I don't care if friends want to go out or have fun or whatever. I have zero desire
Mm,
to go to the bar. Like I would rather be doing anything else, almost anything else, than
yeah.
going to the
I've
bar.
never been a big bar goer, and even when I lived in Tifton, um, I always had this thing about not going to parties at other people's houses. Like, I'd be more than happy to have people at my house and drink, but they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go to so and so's and drink." Like, no, I'll just stay here and play my video games then.
Did you go to that show? I don't. It was like it was somewhere around Tifton, but it was out on the outskirts somewhere. Somebody's like parents were gone, and so they like had this big show there. There were surprisingly a lot of people there, but I remember because a tree had fallen down onto this house, and no one ever like fixed it. So there's just a house with like a
Um,
tree falling on it.
I don't
Anyway,
I don't remember
uh,
that show. I know we did. So our friend of the band, Rhett Butler, his mom sold the house, so like all the furniture was out, and his mom was moved into the new house, but like they bought a new house and moved out, but they hadn't sold the old one yet, and it was like it's a big house out by a lake and stuff. And he was about to leave for the military, and his birthday was coming up soon, so he's like, "Mom, I'm gonna have a party there," and she's like, "Okay, just don't break any windows." Like that was the only rule was don't break a window. So then he actually brought Eastbound and Down out. So we played like this huge empty house. There's actually ended up being like 100 something people there.
that would be fun.
It was super fun. It was so loud in there. We played in the sunroom, so like it was literally just a room of glass, just
That'd be pretty
echoed
cool.
everywhere.
Yeah, I remember we played and then the cops came and shut it down because it was too loud. So we actually were the last ones to play, which was nice.
Was
Uh,
that um this may have been before you. I know the variant played a house show on the outskirts of Tifton, but I want to say that was the variant with the old lineup before rest got together.
yeah,
It
not
happened pretty
sure.
often.
Yeah, I just remember it was like people were trying real hard to act like they were rock stars or whatever. Like you go in the house and there's drugs on the table and like just stupid stuff. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, this isn't some TV show or movie, that's like stereotypical whatever.
Yeah.
Just kind of silly stuff. I don't know.
I
Yeah,
remember we played a house party like in the dead center of town, like the neighborhoods where your neighbors' houses are like 10 feet from your house.
yeah,
How the cops didn't get called there, I don't know.
yeah. I
Actually,
don't know.
do you know Lane from the
Hmm.
Tipton music scene? This was his grandparents' house. For
That's
whatever reason,
funny.
we threw a house party at his grandparents' house.
Yeah, they're uh, they're nice to. It's nice to think back on that stuff, but I'm glad that we moved on from
Yeah, for sure.
from there. Oh man, I think it'd be fun to play music a little bit again if I were like with people, but I wouldn't try to make it professional. It would just be fun. I think that would be
Yeah,
enjoyable. But
you take the eastbound and down approach.
right, yeah, just have fun with it. Just do it because you like to instead of trying to do it for a living. I think that would have made a huge difference.
Yeah, I still think it's wild that the connections I've made through them, like music isn't a huge part of my life anymore, but it was back then, and it kind of like is the connection that allowed me to even get here. So I'll try to keep it short, but I was playing in a band. The drummer was getting tattooed. His tattoo artist was looking for an apprentice. That's how I started getting into tattooing. Getting into tattooing is how I met some of the other bands I ended up playing in later. Uh, Long story short, which is eventually how I ended up uh, playing in more bands around Tiffany era, playing shows with you. Um, so yeah, music got me into tattooing. Tattooing got me um, connected to other people and connected to you, but it also ended up connecting me. to a guy that got me the job in Macon, which was where I was able to land the internship for a designer and then turn into a developer role. So it has a hand as all the way back. If you take music out of the equation, I wouldn't end up here.
I think that I think that a lot of it has to do with how you treat people or how you generally like conduct yourself around people. Like you treat people with respect,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that has a lot to do with those connections that you made. Because if you weren't that way, you could have still been in music, and not had the same connections happen. So like
Yeah.
when things come up and I'm like thinking about who's working on this that I might be able to recommend, I think about Drew and I think about, oh yeah, he generally did what he said and he wasn't an asshole. So yeah, sure, you should give him a call or whatever. I think that went a long way, um, in your, I guess building your connections. So I think,
Yeah.
it is like some of it's a little bit, luck or right place, right time, but a lot of it also too is a lot. It's more than that. So yeah, I say that because I'm very similar. And
Mm-hmm.
then so every sprint retro, my producer has this thing where she and the other two devs that I work with will say something nice about me and I won't write it on the board. And she's like, you have to write it on the board. I'm like, I'm not doing it. So no.
Does it feel like you're like was it stroking your own ego when you do that? So you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that.
No, it just makes me feel uncomfortable. It always has. I don't know why. Couldn't tell you why. Maybe I should talk to a
Someone
therapist
gives you
about
a
it.
compliment, and you're just like, don't say those words.
Yeah, I don't want that. Something like that. But yeah, it's funny because she'll do it every retro, and I just won't put it on the board. So she'll write it, and then I'll go back and delete it. Yeah. Well, cool,
Nice.
man. I should probably let you get going. It's 10:30 there.
Yeah, it's creeping up on me.
I'm fading a little bit too.
Right on.
Thanks for coming and hanging out, everybody. It's been fun. It's always fun just to see how many musicians are out there. It's like half of us, maybe more than half of us, programmers are musicians or were musicians.
I feel like
I,
60% of the ones that have like an active internet presence.
yeah,
I feel like there's probably a whole lot of developers that aren't that you just don't know about, or you just
right.
don't ever hear from.
Well, so like I'm super introverted. I've always been super introverted, and
Hmm.
the only reason why I'm able to do like uh marketing or sales stuff, or people might find me personable. They're like, "Well, I don't, how can you be introverted?" I was like, "Well, this is a learned skill. I had to learn how to be able to talk to other people if I wanted to eat food because I needed to convince them to buy my record or T-shirt.
Yeah.
So it was like a long piano does count, Thomas. It was like a long time of like being very uncomfortable, but sort of like having a necessity of wanting to or needing to,
Hmm.
make connections with people. Otherwise, they forget you and forget your band. So
I think
uh,
that's one skill I never developed, and probably why tattooing never worked out. I'm pretty introverted myself, and when it comes down to if I have to talk to someone and convince them something, I'm just not going to bother them with it.
I can do it, but then I'll need to like be alone for like a week after that to recover.
Yeah. I just
So
tweeted something similar about that. How like we're planning a trip to SeaWorld in September, and like I'm already thinking like, all right, I can just isolate myself for like 2 weeks before that, and then I'll have the mental energy of going out.
yeah, yeah. Luckily, I'm not expected to do a bunch of social events and things. So with Jamie's pretty chill as well, which is like I'm thankful for that. But yeah,
Right.
cool, man. Thanks again for being on, and
Yeah,
thanks
I've
again
enjoyed
everybody
it.
for hanging out. Thomas, hopefully you get some good sleep tonight. And mess with the synth. All right. See you, everybody.